Hi guys, in this episode of the Nostalgia Trip, I'm finally gonna be having the long-awaited Nostalgia Pick episode where I'm gonna be talking about my top 22 episodes of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2012 series. And I know that I promised that I was gonna be doing this video a long time ago. I know you guys have been excited to see this, and it's finally happening. I'm really excited to share with you all of the best episodes of this show and what I consider the most interesting ones. I feel like probably some of the choices that I have over here, or at least the positions for some of these episodes, might be surprising to some of you. I feel like my number one pick is probably going to be very surprising to you guys, but it's still my list. Like, this is purely my opinion. I kind of try to still kind of gauge the episodes based on like objective quality, but ultimately it is my top 22 episodes of TMNT 2012. Feel free to comment your own lists of episodes in the comment down below though. I would be really happy to read up what you guys have picked and your thoughts about why those episodes are at those particular spots. It could be really something really cool, and it can even be something that we can do another video of, like me reacting to your guys' lists. Comment down below if you want to see that. But yeah, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked. I'm really excited. Basically, the way this goes is two-parters and three-parters are also included in each of these positions. So like if we have a two-parter story like we do in some of these choices, basically the whole story is included on it. But I'm sure you already know how this works since I've done a list for the TMNT 2003 series, Transformers Armada, and I will be doing also lists for Fullmetal Alchemist, the 2003 series, and Generator X very soon as well, so stick around for that. But yeah, I think this is enough chit chat. I think we should just get into the list because it is gonna be pretty long video anyway. So let's start it off with number 22, Season 4, Episode 20, The Super Shredder. So this episode for me, I enjoy it quite a lot. It's obviously almost the climax of the Season 4 story arc with Shredder and his mutations and everything. And this is the episode in which it mutates. So we do get to see a lot of action-packed scenes and a lot of fights between all the different characters, and that's exciting and fun. And obviously it is so fun because we have the 4 seasons of build-up. It's not really fun if that was like the beginning of season 1, which is why I feel like season 1 was kind of weirdly not that entertaining for me, even though in retrospect like it is not necessarily that much worse or anything, but it is kind of a little bland. But because we have so much story already, it really adds a lot of weight to everything that happens in this episode, and I do enjoy it. I enjoy all the fights. I don't quite remember whether one of my favorite scenes of this series period happens in this episode. The scene where April goes toe-to-toe with the Shredder. It might happen in this episode, it might not. I couldn't really find the scene when I was like reminding myself of this episode before starting this video, so maybe it's there, but I really liked those kind of face-offs. And we also had the fight between Splinter and the Shredder in this episode, and when they both fall into the underground city, which I still don't understand what the hell was that underground city about. Like, I didn't even remember when it was introduced. Apparently it was in like the Rat King, or one of the Rat King episodes, which, fair enough, I remember that fight that Splinter had with him there, but I didn't realize it was some kind of like an underground city. It was so nonchalantly introduced. But yeah, there's a lot of really cool action scenes in this episode, and a lot of emotional and shocking moments because I care about so many of these characters at this point of the story, especially because season 4 of this show was actually pretty dope. Even though I probably think season 5 is my favorite overall, because it's just so much wacky adventures that we get in season 5, and I really, really like it. But I think this is a really fun episode that really climaxes the story really well, even though it still continues in some of the other ones. It's not like the final battle between these characters or whatever. It's still a really cool climactic episode, and I really, really like it. But yeah, now let's get into some more obvious choices for number 21, that being season 4, episode 3, The Weird World of Wyrm. Now, I don't really think it's that complicated why I've chosen this episode for this list. After starting to get some really wacky episodes in this show where literally everything happens, and like the writers are on drugs when they're making these episodes, this was another one of those episodes. And obviously, since I already enjoyed the bunch like that we got before, I enjoyed this one as well. Although I feel like with this episode a little bit, because I already expected some really crazy visuals and crazy, insane moments, it kind of maybe went a little bit too far, and I didn't really feel the weight of the craziness happening. But it was still really cool to see, and I really liked... the whole storyline of the episode was really cool, with first how we are kind of introduced to Wyrm by going on like an abandoned spaceship, which really reminded me of Alien Isolation. And it's just the atmosphere of the episode was really, really cool. Like, it started off as horror, and it went to wacky stuff, and then it went to like... it was all a dream kind of thing. And I feel like it was just a really, really well constructed episode. Like, this is something that I would love to see in something like Doctor Who. I think it could really work really well. But yeah, it's just a really fun, crazy, wacky episodes. Plus, I always love like wish-based episodes of any show. It's always really fun because it's cool to see the characters get whatever they have always wanted, but with a twist, and them realizing that they didn't actually want what they wanted. It's really cool like that. Plus, I love that Casey is like the solution to this, but he doesn't even realize it later on. Like, it's pretty cool. I really like it. It's a wacky episode, and at the point of where this episode is placed in the series, I was fully into that kind of stuff. And honestly, these kind of episodes were what I was looking forward to when I was watching the series. But yeah, really great episode. Now though, for number 20, I'm kind of unsure whether you guys would be surprised about the pick that I made for number 20. Because I myself didn't really expect that I was gonna like it that much, but I do. That being the season 5 finale of this series, or basically the series finale, and what I consider the series finale, the Carmageddon post-apocalyptic 3-parter. So yeah, I still think that 3-parter is a little bit bland, and I definitely can see ways how the story of it could be spiced up a little bit more and made more exciting. Like, I feel like the pacing is a little slow, as is the case for most of the wacky tales of the TMNT stuff that we get in season 5, but I still really like it because I am a sucker for post-apocalyptic stuff. Not necessarily for Mad Max, I haven't really watched it, and this is basically that. But I am a sucker for post-apocalyptic stuff, so I really dig the story, or at least the backstory for how the world that this 3-parter happens in is. It's really cool, it's really fun, and I would have really liked for us to actually get like a full season of something like that. Like, have the season 4 finale or something, have that mutagen bomb happen, and then it's a post-apocalyptic world, because it's really cool. I feel like that could be something really cool after having like 4 seasons, or however many seasons you want to put it, of like normal TMNT adventure. it would be really cool for it to go completely wacky and just destroy the world, and then it basically becomes TMNT meets The Walking Dead or something like that. Like, I think that would be really cool. And this, even though it's like basically that in a condensed form, I still really like it. I still like a lot of the subtly dark moments, like seeing the Casey skull, for example. Like, that was some really cool stuff. And I'm surprised they got away with that. But that's interesting. It kind of bothered me that we didn't really get much of any reference to April in that three-parter, but it was a really fun, really interesting, albeit maybe a little bland at times, three-parter. I definitely enjoyed it quite a lot, and especially it really managed to hit me in the feels in the final shot, and that's why I feel like this is the true finale of the 2012 TMNT series. Like, I know that that's what was intended to be the finale because it's the last produced episode of the series, but Nickelodeon forced them to reorder the episodes or whatever, so the crossover with the 1987 TMNT is technically the finale of the series, but I feel like this is far more fitting. Like, literally the last shot of this three-parter is the turtles with them looking where they are now and reminiscing to where they used to be with like Splinter and them as young and normal mutants and not the monsters that they've become in this post-apocalyptic world. And it just kind of really hit me in the feels in the way of like, man, look how far we've come. And it really hit me. It did hit me. In the same way that, for example, the Walking Dead finale hit me in the feels. And I honestly did not expect that I was gonna be as sad for the ending for the 2012 TMNT series as I was, but I did really enjoy this episode, and that's why it's on this list. Maybe it could have been higher, but I still think this is a good enough spot because it's not necessarily the greatest three-parter ever. Like I said, it has its bland moments, it has its slow pacing at times, but I think it's overall a really cool story that I think could have lost one episode and it would have been just as entertaining, you know? But yeah, now for number 19. Another kind of emotional episode. That being Season 4, Episode 23, Tokka versus the World. I think it's pretty obvious once again why this episode was so emotional for me when I watched it. As a big lover of pets, and animals in general, but in particular like pets and specifically cats. I mean, how am I supposed to not get emotional when a character is almost going to lose their pet? And that pet also makes this really cutesy cry. Like, it's basically made for somebody like me who loves cats in particular, you know? And I love how the emotion of Raph having to give up Chompy back to his mom, like, it kind of encapsulates how sometimes you have to do things that you don't like, but that are for the good of, like, the thing that you love, you know? And it just kind of really hit me. I guess it kind of reminded me of the times in my childhood where I've wanted to, like, protect my cats in some way, shape, or form, but my parents might have forced me to do something else because it's better for them or whatever. Like, wanting to keep the cat inside the house because outside there's a storm, but my parents would force me to leave them outside or whatever, or something along those lines. I don't know, but it really encapsulated that emotion that I remember feeling throughout my life when it came to my cats quite a lot, and I really loved it. And I loved that Tokka realized that Chompy was better off with Raph, or at least it was going to be fine and it was going to be happy staying with Raph. Like, that is really cool. And I also really liked seeing Chompy in the post-apocalyptic world of the last episode that I mentioned. That was really cool. I'm glad that he survived, because that would have really made this episode far worse if he didn't survive the mutagen bomb. But I'm glad that he did. And yeah, it's a cutesy pet character. How am I supposed to hate it? Like, I love all the pets that the turtles get in any incarnation, honestly. I love Ice Cream Kitty, I love Clunk, and I love Chompy. Yeah, there's not really much to this episode outside of that. I think there might have been some cool fights between Bishop and some of the EPF people, but I haven't watched the episode in a while, and I only briefly remind myself of the general idea of what the episode was about. So yeah, overall really fun episode, but the part that I really love about it is definitely the emotion. But yeah, finally we get to number 18, that being season 4 episode 10, the Trans-Dimensional Turtles. I know, I'm saying a lot of season 4 episodes. I know that, don't worry. It's gonna get a little bit more mixed up as we get further and further up the list, but this is just how it feels. Like, a lot of episodes from season 4, and especially the second half, are really good, but not necessarily the peak of the series in my eyes. Like, the average quality of the episodes around that time is really high, which is why I had a lot of fun with it and why it's so memorable as well. But some other episodes in other seasons just had a higher peak of like excitement or whatever, and that's why they're higher. And in the case of this episode, I'm not necessarily that big of a fan myself. Like, I don't really remember being too crazy about this episode, because if you guys remember, I was kind of a hater of the 1987 TMNT, if I gotta be honest. But now that I've been reacting to the 1987 series for like 3 seasons, I've kind of fallen in love with it. Like, I've had a lot of fun, especially with this current 3rd season that I am at. I've been having a lot of fun, and in retrospect, I kind of feel like this episode is probably not that bad. And at the very least, I remember that it didn't really make me hate the 1987 series, so in a way, it probably did them justice, because I've noticed, now that I'm more familiar with what the actual characters of the 1987 series are like, that a lot of the crossover media that we get between different incarnations of TMNT with the 1987 series, I've realized that a lot of the time they do not really do them justice. And I've talked about this in my reactions to like the 90s live action TMNT movies. It really feels like whenever any modern writer or producer of TMNT like references the 1987 series or like crosses over with them, they're more so crossing over with the movie Turtles, not the cartoons, because especially in the second 90s movie, like, the characters basically act as much of buffoons as they do in Turtles Forever or the other TMNT 2012 and 1987 crossover. Like, it feels like the characters are far more similar to the 90s movies rather than the 1987 series, because the 1987 series Turtles, while jokey at times and kind of self-aware, they're still like take themselves seriously, and they still like fight for good. Like, they're still as serious as any other incarnation. They take themselves as seriously. Like, they're not just buffoons all the time. The 90s movies Turtles are buffoons. The only movie in which that they are not is the third one, which I know a lot of people love to say that it's pretty bad, but if you guys watch my reaction to it, you might change your mind. I actually had a lot of fun with the third 90s movie. It's probably my favorite. Debatably my favorite of all the live action ones, but the 2014 live action one was also really good. But yeah, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked. The point is that I think this is, in retrospect, probably the best crossover that the 1987 TMNT have gotten. So that alone kind of makes it deserve a spot on this list, if nothing else. But I'm pretty sure from what I remember, it was a fun episode with at least like one or two fun moments. I think this is the episode where they reference the 2014 live action movies with like the Megan Fox line. So that is something really fun that I really remember laughing my ass off. But yeah, I really like that episode. At number 17, we're finally going to be switching it up, and we're not going to have a season 4 or season 5 episode. Instead, we're going to have a season 2 episode. That being season 2, episode 7, Slash and Destroy. And obviously, the reason why I love this episode so much is because it introduces us to the mutated version of Slash, who is a badass. And we get some really cool action scenes in this episode where he completely wrecks Raph and his brothers, and it's so cool to see and so shocking. Like, back when this episode happens in season 2, I remember that I was obviously just getting into season 2, and at the time season 1 felt like really bland and boring and uninteresting, and season 2, right from the first episode, was so much more bold and exciting and inspired and interesting. So, because I was reacting to so many episodes in quick success, I was not like accustomed to getting this kind of shocking and brutal violence in these shows. So when I saw Slash completely beat the shit out of Raph and his brothers, it was really badass and really cool. I gotta say though, I'm not sure how to feel about how Slash changes from what he was as a normal turtle to what he is as a mutant, and even further to what he becomes through his character development. Because as a normal turtle, like, he was a normal turtle, he was chill and kind of didn't really give a shit about anything. But then as Slash, he becomes like this ruthless badass. And I kind of dig that. I like how much of an anti-hero he is. It's really, really cool to see. But at the same time, I kind of get like where his how his character development works. Like, he works with a villain. The villain shows that he doesn't give a shit about anybody else, while Slash still kind of cares, I guess, for innocence. So he realizes, oh, I guess I'm not a villain, I gotta be nicer or whatever. It makes sense the way his character develops, but I feel like they kind of lose most of the edge of the character, and that's the most interesting part of it, of his character, like being a anti-hero. At least for me, that was the most interesting side of it. So I wish they kind of kept him still as more of like a ruthless character, but still, his introduction here was really, really cool, and I really, really liked it. It was a really fun and brutal episode. At a time where it was still very fresh for me to get something like that in this series. And yeah, I think this is the perfect time to get into number 16, because the topic of the episodes at number 16 have something similar in why I love them so much and why I put them where I put them, similar to this episode. So at number 16, we're gonna have the season 3 finale, episode 25 and 26, Annihilation and Earth, part 1 and 2. And man, what other reason do I need to put this episode where it is, other than the fact it's the end of the flipping world? Like, that alone, in my eyes, makes this episode an amazing episode that deserves to be on a list like this. Like, it's crazy. The visuals when the black hole happens at the end there are insane. I love it. Like, at this point, I was obviously already kind of used to how crazy and inspired and interesting this show became, but it was still so wild. Like, this is some of the wildest visual, and I think it's thanks to the tone of this series not being like being relatively down to earth, that something as crazy as this happening is so cool. Like, imagine if that happened in like the 2003 series. I feel like it wouldn't hit as hard as it does in this episode. And even outside of the end of the flipping world, it's still such an amazing episode. Like, even if the world wasn't ending in this episode, we still have the introduction of Bishop, which, I mean, I feel like I've made it pretty clear how much I love Bishop as a character, no matter the incarnation. So that's always a plus for me, and that's always a reason to like an episode. But I still, like, while I don't necessarily like this version of Bishop as much as the 2003 one, I still think he was really cool, and I liked his introduction, so I still really like this episode. But we have the Triceraton invasion. We have the Krang being terrified from the Triceratons. I believe it happens in this episode. I haven't watched the episode recently, so I don't quite remember, but I'm pretty sure that the Triceratons like destroy the Krang underneath, which was a really shocking and brutal moment to set up how threatening of a villain they are. And then you have everybody teaming up to stop them from destroying the planet. Like, that is so cool. And obviously you have the moment where Shredder betrays everybody and stabs Splinter. Who could have seen that coming? Sadly, I wasn't spoiled about this moment, but I remember years ago when this show aired on TV, when I was still watching TV, I remember seeing that scene and that episode. I don't think I remember seeing the following death of Splinter, but I remember seeing this one, and it would have been definitely cooler if I wasn't spoiled about it like that, but I still think it was a really cool moment and really fun. And I love how the story of the episode flowed to where you couldn't necessarily be sure whether it was gonna happen or not, you know? Because even Tiger Claw, I believe it was, kind of called out the Shredder for doing something so foolish. And yet he still continued to serve him, even going as far as to bring him back to life, stupidly. Only then does he actually learn his lesson, but that's for a later episode that I'm going to talk about. But yeah, really cool finale. Debatably, for me, still like the best and most exciting finale of this series overall, because the season 1 finale I feel like was kind of lame and uninteresting and uninspired, like all of season 1 really. The season 2 finale, I think, was what the season 1 finale should have been, if I gotta be honest. It definitely was better, still nothing crazy though, but like I said, that's what the season 1 finale should have been. The season 4 finale is very different from season 1, 2, or 3, and I still think it works, like it's a good finale, but it's not really what I enjoy. Like, I already have been accustomed to like the crazy everything is being destroyed kind of finale for season 1, 2, or 3, so then to throw me a more personal season finale in season 4 kind of just feels a little weird. And the season 5 finale is, I guess, kind of reminiscent of what we have in this one, like the season 3 one. But again, even that one has its issues and it's kind of bland, and I already talked about how I feel about it. So this one is, I feel like, the peak hype finale of this show, so I really like it. And I know, with all these things that I'm saying about this episode, it kind of makes you think, shouldn't this episode be further up? And yeah, maybe, but the reasons why I enjoy the top episodes, I think you're gonna kind of realize as we get through them. It's because, I mean, I'm gonna keep it as a spoiler for once we get there. I don't think I should tell you this early. Although the next episode on this list, that being number 15, season 5, episode 10, Lone Rotten Cups, should pretty much tell you why the top episodes are what they are. Because this is very much a standalone flashback story in season 5, and I really dig it. I really do. In a season where all of the story arcs are like 3 or 4 episodes, it is definitely refreshing to have an episode that is kind of self-contained and everything. And it's honestly really cool with the kind of style that the 2012 series acquired over the course of the series. I definitely think the fact that we got this flashback in season 5, it benefited from taking so long to get a flashback like this, because I don't think this episode would have been as entertaining if it happened in season 1. Because I feel like the style, the atmosphere just wouldn't have hit as hard as it does with the kind of cartoon making that we have in season 5. And yeah, I love it. I love the story of how the turtles found their lair. I love how brutal Splinter is in this episode, and how he kind of like gets closer with the turtles and everything. I love seeing the backstory of all of that. I love seeing how Raph gets a little bit of his like shell chipped. Like, that's really cool. And yeah, like, Splinter is so brutal in this episode. It's kind of insane. Like, at times he's just straight up killing the Krunks because he's slicing directly at their stupid pink brain heads, and not like their metal body heads or anything else. No, he's straight up slicing them. And again, it kind of is crazy that they could get away with this. Like, for whatever reason, TMNT sure loves like getting really fucking brutal out of nowhere in the later season of its series, and I kind of dig that, you know. But it's not an episode without its flaws. And the flaws for this episode for me are that it kind of retcons season 1 in a way. Because from what I remember, like, Splinter wasn't aware of the Krang, like, being a thing in season 1. At least, to my knowledge, it never came off as he knew what they were. And I feel like even the Turtles could have potentially known about it, especially because this is portrayed as Splinter telling the Turtles this story, right? So he would be telling them about the Krang, like these alien brains inside of robot bodies. So shouldn't the Turtles be like open-minded and actually know about the existence of the Krang in season 1, thus believing Mikey when he tells them that he saw them? Like, that kind of doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit with what we know. And personally, I'd rather take the idea of this episode being canon over what we actually get in season 1, because I'm not really that big of a fan of like season 1 anyway. So yeah, I prefer the way the story is portrayed in season 5. But this is a really, really fun episode, and I really, really like it. Now, at number 14, though, we are gonna have another season finale. Kind of the first peak of excitement for me, I feel like, in this series. Because like I said, the season 3 finale is the ultimate peak of hype. Debatably, I guess some episodes in season 5 were more exciting and more hype, but finale-wise, the season 3 one is definitely the best one. And like I said, the season 2 one comes very close as well, for so many reasons. There were so many surprises, honestly, in this episode. One that I kind of remembered just as I was watching this episode, because I've watched this series before on TV before I was reacting to it, so it kind of just jumped into my mind, that specific scene where Irma is revealed to be actually Krang Supreme, I think. It was his name. I literally remembered it as I was watching this episode. And it was really cool. It's always really cool to me, and it's happened honestly in other cartoons as well, most notably in Full Metal Alchemist. It's always so cool to me whenever as I'm watching an episode or a movie or whatever it may be, that I figure out the story or the mystery or whatever right before it happens. Like, it's always so cool. And this is, I guess, another case of that. But it's more so me remembering. But it was a really cool reveal. And then I made the joke about where's the EPF when you need it. And what do you know it? In literally the next shot, the goddamn EPF shows up. I believe without Bishop. He shows up in, was it season? Yeah, it was the season 3 finale. And that was really cool, yeah. But yeah, it's a really crazy episode. It's still not as good as the season 3 finale, but I think it definitely has its merits. Like I said, it's what it should have been the season 1 finale, because the season 1 finale is very bland, very uninteresting, very honestly. But in this one we have the typical Leo gets thrown through a window scene, which in the 2003 series, for example, happens in season 1. Even more reason for this to have been the season 1 finale. It feels more epic. It feels like the actual grandiose climax of the Krang invasion, because that's what this two-parter is called. So why wasn't this the season 1 finale? It kind of makes it feel like season 1 was just, I don't know, a prologue in a way. But yeah, it's a really cool episode. And from this episode onwards, we also get a new, better voice actor for Leo, which for whatever reason he genuinely made the series far more entertaining. So I don't know. So I guess thanks to this episode, thank you. But yeah, really fun episode, lots of crazy stuff happening, a climax of 2 seasons worth of story. I really like it, but it's still not as good as the season 3 one, I feel like. But it was the first one that happened, so it hits me harder, I guess, in a way. But yeah, I don't know. Now, let's get into number 13. As we were talking about a lot of the finales, in this case we're gonna have the penultimate episode, not the actual finale, because I mean, the cool thing happens in the penultimate episode of Season 4, so that's why I picked for number 13, Season 4, Episode 25, Requiem, over the actual finale. And it's debatable whether this episode quite deserves to be this high, because for most of the episode, it's honestly a little bit of a drag, because we all know what's gonna happen by the end of the episode. It's very much telegraphed in this episode. Like, it has this foreboding feeling throughout this episode. Clearly we're gonna be having a final fight between Shredder and Splinter, and no, I already was spoiled about the fact that he was actually going to die, so it was very obvious what was going to be happening by the end of the episode. So it kind of felt like a little bit of a drag to watch through all the build up to that. But once we get to like the actual fight, and especially the actual death scene of Splinter, boy is it amazing. Like, especially the animation in that like bunch of shots as Splinter is dying is amazing. Like, there's so many frames, there's so much movement in the faces. I love how shocked the faces of the characters are at the fact that Splinter has just been killed. It's amazingly well animated. It's awesome. I really like it. It's just so beautiful, and also a little bit emotional, obviously, especially when Mikey calls him Pappy. I think that's what he called him. That just really fucking tugged at my heartstrings in a way which I just didn't expect to, you know, because as much as I love this series, like I said when I talked about the actual series finale, I didn't really feel that attached to the characters. Like, I didn't really feel too emotionally attached to the characters. Even by this point, like, it's not like I didn't care for the characters, but I didn't feel like I didn't feel like they were like my family members, my relatives dying or anything like that. But still, seeing Mikey teary-eyed and crying for his dad, it hit me. It definitely hit me. I didn't quite cry, but it was very much a tearjerker moment there. And I'm pretty sure in that scene there, Shredder gets thrown into the dump truck, which Casey turns on or whatever, like a badass, which is really, really cool. And it's from the 90s movie. That's a cool moment that I really, really liked. And I also love, like, it was kind of like instant retribution or revenge against the Shredder because of that, because we have this somber moment of Splinter being dead and Casey, like a badass, knowing that his friends have just been hurt in a very, very painful way, just, for lack of a better term, kills the Shredder in a very, like, composed and badass way. And I really, really like that moment as well. It's a great episode. I know a lot of you might have put the season finale here because we do have like a final fight between the Turtles and the Shredder, but I personally have some issues with it, like the fact that obviously the Turtles one by one get thrown off the roof, so it has to be just Leo and the Shredder fighting at the end there. And while it's still like a fun fight and we have a decent amount of like action moments there that are really, really cool, it really bothered me. I feel like it should have been a 4 versus 1 fight, not just 1 versus 1. Like, I get it. Leo is the leader, and I get why it still ends up being like a 1-on-1 fight, but I feel like the other Turtles just don't really get a cathartic moment in it, you know? But yeah, still, this is a really cool episode, and I really, really like it. At number 12, we're gonna have what is technically the proper Season 4 finale of this series, if I gotta be honest. That being Season 5, Episode 4, End Times. Boy, was this an amazing episode, honestly. It is, in a way, like the ultimate culmination of the first 4 seasons of this show. With this being the final time that we see the Shredder, I mean, it was really, really cool. Like, I already really liked the Demodragon arc, which was the first arc of the Tales of the TMNT in Season 5. It genuinely felt like what I would have seen the Season 5 storyline to be if Season 5 was a normal season of the show and we had like further more seasons. It genuinely was starting off and building up as if that's just what Season 5 was going to be. And just like how Season 4 was better than Season 3, Season 3 was better than Season 2, and Season 2 was better than Season 1, Season 5 of this show was, right off the bat with the first episode, even more cinematic and interesting and inspired, to the point where the first episode I adore. Like, it looks so good. I don't think the rest of the season matches necessarily the level of like cinematicness that the first episode has, but it still kind of keeps most of that vibe there. And the reason why this episode is at this position is, again, like I said, because this is kind of the ultimate finale for Season 4, because we still had a bunch of characters that we hadn't dealt with from the previous season, and we do deal with them in this story arc, the Demodragon story arc, and in particular this episode. So, just like how I put the Season 3 finale, Season 2 finale here, this is kind of the reason why I put this here, because it's the climax of that story arc. And I love everything about this episode. Like, we get Splinter back as a ghost fighting a one-off ghost that we had before. I think his name was like Ho-chan or whatever. Actually, now that I remember, I think in Ho-chan's episode we kind of got teased about the true secret behind Irma, which is kind of cool to think about. But I love that. I kind of both love and hate the fact that Splinter comes back for a little bit in this episode, because we literally just killed him like 5 episodes ago. It kind of takes away from the fact that he's dead now that you bring him back so soon. Hell, I actually thought, because of the way it was presented at the end there, that we might actually get him back for real, because we actually had the physical form of him and him hugging the turtles, if I remember correctly. And that was sweet and all, but like I said, it's both a heartwarming moment, but also at the same time kind of takes away from the death of him in the previous season, because it's like, how to describe it? Like, after you kill the character, after he died, it really felt like the show raised the stakes to the point where I was worried about any character appearing and potentially dying, you know? So, bringing him back just kind of takes that fear away from me. Especially because I think that at the time, one of the best episodes of Invincible was still fresh in my mind. Like, it's kind of a sidetrack, I know, but I love how the characters in that show die. Like, the way the show kind of snaps the characters is really cool, to the point where it just kind of invaded my mind when it came to other shows as well. So anytime I saw a character die like we do in this show, it just really made me fear for any other characters dying afterwards if I see them. Like, it really just takes away from his death. Because when a character dies, they should stay dead. Because the actual dead, like the hit of the dead, keeps being heavier if you don't bring them back. Even in like a flashback or whatever, the longer you keep them away from the characters, the more it kind of weighs on you that, yes, they are dead, and now these other characters have to continue without them. And when it's a mentor character like this, it's even more important. But ultimately, it doesn't really bother me too much, because I feel like there's enough excitement in the rest of the episode that I really enjoy. Although, I do want to point out that I really hate the way the Demodragon in particular gets defeated in this episode, because it ends up being by Mikey, who just uses fucking chewing gum to fix the seal that was controlling the Demodragon. It just feels like a Deus Ex Machina a little bit. But, I don't know. Overall, I still really like this episode. I really liked seeing the zombie shredder. While I definitely would have liked, like, seeing an actual storyline with the zombie shredder, we already got, like, 4 seasons of the shredder, so at the same time, I'm also fine with him disappearing after this episode. And it's also really kind of cool how he sacrifices himself to send the Demodragon to hell, and especially because he says that they do not belong in this world anymore. Like, it kind of, I guess, has Shredder, like, pay for his sins by sacrificing himself. Like, I kind of dig that quite a lot, and I definitely did not see that coming, especially from character like the Shredder. So the shock value of that moment in him sacrificing himself was really, really cool, and I really, really like that about it. But yeah, honestly, now that I think about it, if we consider this like the actual season 4 finale in a way, this is probably the most hype finale that we got of this show. Now that I think about it, because it was crazy. Like, once again, the world was ending, ghosts and demons were coming back. It was definitely kind of wilder than just the sci-fi black hole sucking the earth or whatever. I love both, but yeah, this is debatably the hypest one. But what do I know? Anyway, let's continue with number 11, Season 2, Episode 10, Fungus Humongous. Definitely, if you go back in my reactions back to like this episode, you definitely notice that this is one of the earliest episodes that I really like had a lot of fun with and felt like I was on some kind of drugs or something. Because it was a really wild and crazy episode. Like, this is one of the earliest episodes to like kind of seed some of the wackier stuff that we would actually get in like season 3 and 4. with like the dream beavers or the Wyrm genie thing that grants your wishes in season 4. Like, this is probably the earliest one that has some of that wacky visual stuff, and I really like that about this episode. Plus, in general, it looks really beautiful in terms of its colors. As somebody who has blue as their favorite color, it's really beautiful episode for me with all the blue that we see. And again, just like the following seasons, the cinematography is really cool, like some really cool cinematic shots that we have. Back in the beginning of season 2, when I was watching that episode, obviously, it was still such a novelty for me to see this kind of like inspired visuals and camera work in this show, because once again, season 1 kind of sucks in that regard. It's very boring. So I still remember some of the shots from this episode being so beautiful to look at. Like, it's a great episode visually, honestly. Plot-wise, I don't really care too much about it. I don't even remember too much of the plot. But I definitely remember some of the visuals that we get in this episode. And those were really, really wacky. And I guess this is one of the earliest episodes that kind of set me up to like enjoy these kind of episodes the most, because it's some really wacky visuals in otherwise a relatively grounded cartoon. And I say relatively because we still have like aliens and mutants and stuff, but we don't really get this kind of like wacky stuff too much, and that's why it's always cool when it does happen. But yeah, talking about season 2, let's get into the actual top 10 of this series. And getting into it, and already you might be realizing the kind of episodes that I'm most into when it comes to this show. That being the more episodic kind of stuff. Like, sure, we still have some serialization that makes these episodes fun, but the episodes being relatively self-contained is the reason why I love a lot of these episodes. And that's one of the reasons kind of why at number 10 we have season 2's first episode, the season premiere, the Mutation Situation. It is kind of a self-contained episode when you think about it, but the reason in particular when it comes to this episode why I love it so much, it is very much the setting up of the storyline of the season. It really kind of reminds me of how in something like The Flash, the CW's The Flash, you would have the first episode of the season which introduces the main villain, introduces something when it comes to like Barry's abilities or something else that kind of causes the threats of the season. In particular, I think it reminds me of the 4th season of CW's The Flash, because in that one you have Barry coming back after being gone for a while, and him coming back kind of causes the villains of the season to kind of prop up out of nowhere. And this is very much what happens in this season 2 premiere. The Turtles basically create the freaks of the week of the season, or at least that's kind of how it set it up to be. I don't think we really got too many like freak of the weeks based on that, but that setup alone is just something that I really like. I love when the first episode of a season or series or whatever sets up like these kind of like more episodic storylines that we would be getting later on. And even the next episode was really fun and more of like an episodic freak of the week kind of thing. And I always love when shows set up that stuff in the first episode. Plus, this was the first episode where I really like and started enjoying this series. It was the first episode of season 2, and like I already mentioned like 5 times, I kind of hate to be repeating myself, but season 1 was very bland. And this episode just felt so much more interesting. Like visually it was so much more cinematic and interestingly shot. And I don't remember whether this episode in particular had some like handheld camera work, but I'm pretty sure like either Fungus Humongous did, which I kind of forgot to mention, or the next episode, Invasion of the Squirrelanoids, like episode 2 of season 2, had some really nifty, like handheld camera work looking kind of thing. And just in this episode, feeling that inspiration and more creativity just made me enjoy the show so much more and fall in love with it that much more, you know? And for that, I love this episode. It stuck with me, especially that shot of all the canisters with mutagen falling in from the sky. Like, it looks so beautiful and so cinematic and so cool, and I really like it. It's a great episode, especially for that part. Plus, I think like April's dad mutates in this episode once again. So, or I think this is the first time, right? I don't know. I don't quite remember, but that's another reason why I really like it, because also the mutations, I think, start to become a little bit more creatively, visually realized, so I really like that about it. But yeah, I can honestly talk a lot about the ways Season 2 improves over Season 1, but that's not why we're here, are we? So, at number 9, we're gonna have, finally, one episode from Season 1, that being episode 23, Parasitica. And yeah, this is, I'm gonna say it, this is the only episode of Season 1 on this list. Because that's just how much I don't care for Season 1. Like, I've been watching some reactions to TMNT 2012 recently. I've been watching Third Street's reactions to this series. Some of you guys may have seen me in the comments over there. And I definitely enjoyed watching their reactions to Season 1, and it's definitely not as bad as I might make it out to be with my complaining and in my reactions. But it's still very boring overall. And this is the first episode that kind of felt like the writers and the show was actually like having fun with its stories and its concepts. Because you have the turtles one by one basically getting possessed by this mutated wasp that was turning them into its zombie slaves, and then you have Mikey being the one to save them all in a very stupid way. Like, it's a really fun and creative episode, and I really like it. It's one of the earliest episodes to kind of see that fun into this series in my eyes, and for that I think it deserves to be on this list. Plus, I couldn't not put an episode of Season 1 onto this list, and I genuinely feel like this was a really fun episode that deserved to be here when I was reminded of it, because I honestly had completely forgotten, and it doesn't even feel like a Season 1 episode, honestly, when I think about it, but it is, and it's on this list. So, next, we're going to be getting into number 8. That being Season 3, Episode 1, Within the Woods. Again, I feel like some of you guys probably wouldn't really care about this episode much. Like, this is probably a choice for an episode that is not really that common, but I really liked it. It felt like a refreshing change of pace after 2 seasons of relatively the same stuff when it came to the show. Like, sure, Season 2 was better, obviously, than the bluntness of Season 1, but it still felt like very much the same kind of stuff. So for us to go onto the farm, which I actually wasn't like too big of a fan in the 2003 series, like I didn't really care about it much, but in this one it really felt refreshing and interesting and a bit of a change of pace, and I really liked it. And then on top of that, to have this really cool horror episode, really, it was really entertaining for me. I really have started loving, in I feel like the last year or two, I've really started to fall in love with more episodic stories, no matter whether it's in like TMNT 2012 or Fullmetal Alchemist or even something like The Walking Dead. More episodic stuff that are more self-contained like this have become so much more entertaining to me. Like, more of these kind of like concept episodes have become so much more entertaining to me, and this episode is an example of that. And as a big fan of horror, I love the horror homage in this episode, plus the really kind of horrifying concept of Raph getting like sucked dry of energy and being turned into like, I think it was like a plant thing or something. I don't know. That was some really terrifying stuff, honestly. But yeah, it was a really fun, refreshing change of pace with some really cool horror elements, which perfectly appeal to somebody like me. I like it. At number 7, we're gonna have what is probably the one episode that I remember really, really enjoying way before I started my YouTube channel and started doing these reactions. This is probably the first ever episode of this show that I remember enjoying, like, truly. Because it was the one episode of this show that I remember really liking back when it was airing on TV and when I watched it on TV. That being Season 2, Episode 24, Into Dimension X. And if you watched my reactions to the 2012 series, I've already talked about why this episode is so good for me. And it's debatably, it very much debatably could be the objectively best episode of this series. Because I feel like throughout a lot of the series, Mikey really gets kind of screwed over by his brothers. Like, they always kind of are very demeaning to him. They don't trust him in any way, shape, or form. And this is the one episode where accidentally he turns out to be the one to know what to do and how to function and how to do everything right. Like, they go to Dimension X, which turns out to be the perfect world for Mikey. And it's just really satisfying to see him be the most capable out of all of them. It is so cool. Plus, we have some really crazy and wacky and insane visuals inside of Dimension X. That always really cool. We get reconnected with Leatherhead, which is again really cool. But the reason why I love it so much is the fact of Mikey's character development, basically. And it would have been really cool if after this episode he actually got to keep his character development and became a little bit more capable and less jokey, and less screwed over by his brothers. But even then, I still think on its own it stands as a really fun episode for Mikey. And I also remember the really foreboding feeling at the end of the episode that kind of teases the season 2 finale with like the invasion and everything, because due to the events of this episode, supposedly the Krang have been held back like months with their invasion, but it turns out to not be the case. And I really love that foreboding, something's coming feeling that happens at the end of the episode. It is really cool. And also, I really like the aspect of, once again, the end of the episode, where once they are leaving Dimension X and they're escaping it, Mikey once again uses his, like, Dimension X powers, for lack of a better term, like his more capableness that he gets and more confidence that he gets in Dimension X to destroy the whole base of Krang over there. But he comes up with the way to do that when he's already in the normal world, like outside of Dimension X. And I'm pretty sure like the characters also call him out on that he came up with that idea of the blowing up of the base when he was already in the real world. So it wasn't Dimension X that made him capable, it was him. And that's why I wish this episode kind of carried over more when it came to character development, but I still like it nonetheless. I still think it's a fun little Mikey focused episode that I really, really like, which treats him with the respect that he deserves. It kind of reminds me of how the 2003 Mikey was actually like really capable if he actually tried. And that kind of character trait of really capable if you try is something that I relate to, because For example, when it came to school stuff, if I wanted to, I could easily like study everything and get like, at the very least, like straight B's every time on everything. But I just didn't give a shit. The more the years went on, I gave less and less of a shit what I was studying in school. So yeah, I relate to that kind of thinking, you know. But yeah, enough about this really cool Mikey focused episode. Let's move on further with number 6. That being season 4, episode 22, The Power Inside Her. Probably the most shocked I ever was in this series. Like, sure, there were other stuff that I was shocked about, like the way it was animated when Splinter died, or that one episode, two-parter episode in season 5, which kind of is a rip-off of what the events of this episode are a little bit. But this I did not see coming. And with the way Donnie gets obliterated in this episode, like blown to pieces, I didn't see a way that they can actually revive him. So considering how far into the series we were, I thought maybe that the show had the balls to actually kill Donatello. Like, I did not see how they could fix this situation that is created in this episode. Plus, I really like seeing April be OP personally. Like, for me, April's character development is actually probably one of, if not my favorite thing about this series. How much of a powerhouse she becomes by the end of the series. Like, in the beginning, she's like just a normal, average teenage girl, and then by season 4, she goes toe-to-toe with the Shredder. Like, what? Plus, I remember when the show was airing on TV originally, I remember seeing a glimpse of this episode when April is levitating in the streets with like the blue aura around her. I only remember that specific shot of it. And I actually thought that was like caused by her mutated genes and gene editing that was done on her through the Krang or whatever. And I didn't really know anything about that crystal that was given to her by the Aeons. That's still a cool aspect of the story, but I actually thought that was a superpower that she got through being a mutant, which is not what the story was actually. It was a power that was amplified by the crystal. So I'm still kind of right, but not really. But it was a really fun episode. Some really crazy visual once again. Like, at this point, the series is just so fucking cinematic and amazing, and I love it. So we have some really cool visuals. I love when Donnie gets fucking blown into atoms. The way it's shown as well, it's insane. And yeah, it felt so complete and utter destruction on the atomic level that I genuinely didn't know how the hell were they gonna bring him back, which is why I was so shocked. Like, you should definitely go and see my reaction to it if you haven't, because wow, that was so shocking. And yeah, this one pretty much set the stage for one of the next episodes on this list, but not the next one. The next one is number 5, season 4, episode 8, The War for Dimension X. Basically, I think the last time we actually get to see Krang Supreme. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the case because Krang Supreme got killed at the end of season 3 when the Triceratons arrived on Earth. But because the Turtles traveled back in time, they fought Krang Supreme in the crossover with the 1987 Turtles, if I remember correctly, and then in this episode. So basically, in the new timeline, Krang Supreme was already dead by the time of the season 3 finale. And it's honestly a really cool episode. Not necessarily quite as epic as the season 3 finale, but to be honest, like season 3 was a finale. This is just the end of the story arc and the wrapping up of that part of the story arc. But for what it is, I think it's actually really fun. I really like seeing Bishop once again. I really like seeing more of the Utroms and learning more about the Utroms. I really like the fight between Bishop and Krang Supreme. That is so badass. I love, obviously, seeing the Salamandrians once again, and the way they fight. I think this was the episode which has one of the funniest moments ever in this series, with Raph being thrown over a Krang spaceship and he just falls, but at the same time he just screams in a really funny way. It happens either in this episode or the Into Dimension X one, the one that focuses on Mikey, but I love that moment regardless of which one of the two it happens in. But yeah, it's a really cool all-out fight between the Krang and the Utroms, and it's basically the ending of the story arc, so there's no way I couldn't put it here. And as a big fan of Bishop's character, seeing his badass self-destroying Krang Supreme was really, really satisfying, plus really cool shot. But yeah, not really much to say about this episode other than that. Now, getting into number 4 on this list, on the other hand, I definitely have some things to say. And at number 4, we have Season 5, Episode 10 and 11, When Worlds Collide. That two-parter. And boy, was this probably the most cannot believe my eyes I've ever been when it came to the show. Like, I've been shocked, I've been excited, but I honestly couldn't believe my eyes when it came to this episode, when Mikey got disintegrated, just like how Donnie got disintegrated like fucking 15 episodes ago, and then he gets reintroduced, rebirth or whatever you want to call it, with flipping flash powers. Like, what the hell? At this point, I just couldn't goddamn believe my eyes with what was happening in this episode. Plus, we had the return of Dreg, which was really, really well done in this episode in my eyes, with like the visuals of an alien spaceship landing on Earth. Like, the atmosphere was really cool. It really reminded me of something like War of the Worlds, with the way it was handled atmospherically. It was really, really hard-hitting seeing him back. Plus, the shock of him coming back, because if there's one thing that I did not expect to happen is for Dreg to come back, because I thought we goddamn defeated him in that one episode where Raph beat his fear of insects or whatever. So I didn't even think that he was in the picture whatsoever, let alone coming back in an epic two-parter, together with the neutralizer as well. What? Like, that was really cool. Plus, once again, we had Bishop included in the story. It was really cool, especially once Mikey got killed, and I believe like Leo gets kidnapped as well. So the group of characters that is left is kind of left without a leader, so all the characters are kind of like one by one getting taken out, if I remember correctly. Like, I love how alien invasion like it really felt. Like, in a way, this kind of felt like the season 2 finale of this series done even better. And I really like that about it. It's really cool. I feel like the atmosphere was handled much better. Like, I already really like the season 2 finale for what it is, but that one still feels like an episode of TMNT. This felt like it was handled like a cinematic alien invasion movie featuring the Turtles and some other auxiliary characters, and I really love that about it. It was really, really fun to watch. It was cool to see Mikey as the goddamn Flash or whatever. I wish he honestly got to keep his powers. I still don't understand how the hell did he survive whatever happened to him. How the hell did he get fucking powers on top of everything? I don't know, but it really made for some really cool sci-fi action, and I really, really enjoyed it. It was a crazy episode. Season 5 in general is so batshit. I love it. It's like 5 amazing seasons shoved into one, and I love that about it. I really do. That's why it's my favorite season, which I don't know how much of a common opinion that is, actually. So comment your thoughts down below whether you also really, really love Season 5 and whether it's your favorite season or whatever. But yeah, now, though, we are gonna be getting into the top 3 episodes of this series, all of which are genuinely some of the best episodes of this series. So now, we are gonna be getting into the top 3 episodes of this series. And these 3 are undoubtedly the best. Like, for some of the other ones, compared to when I originally made this list, I definitely would probably switch it up a little bit now. But I still wanted to stick with what I've had set up, so that's why I recorded it the way I did. But these 3 episodes, I still think are my favorite. Not necessarily the objectively best episodes, even though I definitely think they're like really good, like 10s out of 10 kind of episodes. But they are definitely my favorite episodes, no question asked, no comparison to any of the other episodes. So let's start it off with number 3, Season 5, Episode 1, Scroll of the Demodragon. I feel like I've already kind of talked extensively why I love this episode. I kind of already mentioned it when it came to the End Times episode, but this just felt like this show jumping to another level. Like, it felt like it was evolving in front of my eyes like a goddamn Pokemon or something. Because the show was already improving with each season. Visually, plot-wise, action-wise, in every way, shape, or form. It was improving season to season. But this straight up feels like a goddamn movie. It has the animation fluidity of a movie. There's so much movement in the faces of all the characters. Everything looks so cinematic and epic. And it's obviously like still the continuation of the storylines of the first 4 seasons and everything. So I'm excited to see it. Like, for many of the same reasons of why the season 3 premiere is on this list, or the season 2 premiere is on this list. It's just really cool to see the setup for the storyline of the season. Although in the case of season 5, it's not for the storyline of the season, but just of this little arc, because of the way the season is structured. But it still nonetheless felt like I was watching like a cinematic premiere of an episode of this show, because it felt so much evolved. Like, visually it was amazing. The story, with the way the mystery is set up about this cult of like demonic little creatures or whatever, was really well crafted. And then it turns out to be Tiger Claw, which is a character which we still hadn't wrapped up the story of. It was really cool. And then you have the Demodragon and the turtles fighting off the Demodragon. Like, it's so amazingly cool and I love it. It's so good. Like, that one shot where Leo breaks his swords off of the face of the Demodragon is goddamn amazing. Although I'm not exactly sure whether that doesn't happen in episode 2, but I think it happens in episode 1. Like, this is just the best we've seen from this show visually ever, honestly. I genuinely do not think the rest of the season is quite as good as this episode, but it's still really good. Like, in a way, this is like a 10 out of 10 episode visually when it comes to the rest of the season, and the rest of the season is more of a 9 out of 10 with occasional drops to 8, but mostly a 9 out of 10. It's an amazing episode. I really, really like it. I cannot describe with words, honestly, how much I like it. You probably should go and watch my reaction to this specific episode, because my feelings for it are far more fresh in that video compared to here. But the point is, I really like this episode. Then for number 2, we're actually gonna have kind of a special case of 2 episodes sharing a spot. It's not like an official two-parter, but in a way, due to what the story of the two episodes deals with, it might as well kind of be a two-parter. That being Season 4, Episode 15 and 16, City at War, and Broken Foot. Once again, I feel like it's kind of obvious why I love these two episodes so much. It has the introduction of one of my favorite characters of this series, that being Shinigami, who is, I think, Karai's girlfriend. That's kind of the vibe that I got from her, and my personal headcanon, because I like that as a relationship more than Leo and Karai, which feels kind of generic, honestly. But she's a really charming and cool character, and I love her interaction with pretty much all of the characters in the cast, but she has actually quite a few interactions with Mikey, which are really cool, but she's in general also like a badass with a great charm. She's amazing. I really, really like her. I love her. She's definitely one of my favorite characters when it comes to this show. But basically, these two episodes deals with the turtles meeting Shinigami and then going to fight Karai, but it turns out that Karai is not evil anymore, and instead she actually wants to take on the Shredder. So they kind of team up for pretty much both of these episodes. It's just the pacing, the action, the excitement in these two episodes is to the top. I genuinely think these are the two best episodes of Season 4. I think those are the two episodes that I actually had the most unapologetic fun with when it came to Season 4. I enjoyed plenty of other episodes, as you saw with the episodes that I put on this list, but in particular these two were like the most exciting and fast-paced and action-heavy and fun, and I really, really liked them. And especially like considering I was expecting that the second half of Season 4 wasn't gonna be as exciting as the first half based on how I felt about Season 3, because for me Season 3's first half was really fun when we were on the farm, but once we left the farm it just kind of lost itself a little bit, if I gotta be honest. But Season 4 luckily didn't go that route, and we instead got these two really, really fun episodes. Before we get into the obvious number one on this list though, I do want to give you a bunch of honorable mentions. In no particular order, if I gotta be honest, it's gonna be Season 1, Episode 21, Karai's Vendetta. Season 2, Episode 8, The Good, the Bad, and the Casey Jones. I really like some of the action sequences in that episode and the way Raph and Casey work together. Season 2, Episode 9, The Crown Conspiracy. Season 3, Episode 2, A Foot Too Big. Season 3, Episode 4, Buried Secrets. Season 3, Episode 6, Race with the Demon. Season 3, Episode 7, Eyes of the Chimera. Season 3, Episode 8, Vision Quest. And Season 3, Episode 9, Return to New York. Season 3, Episode 12, 13, Battle for New York, Part 1 and 2. You see what I mean with Season 3's first half being really, really fun and exciting, but the second half kind of dropping the ball? Then we also have Season 4, Episode 6, Journey to the Center of Mikey's Mind, another really fun episode. Season 4, Episode 14, Earth's Last Stand, basically a rehash of the Season 3 finale, but without the end of the world. And a hell of a mindfuck of how the hell did there's like two pairs of turtles now? I still don't know. Just watch that video reaction, honestly. There's also Season 4, Episode 26, Owari. Season 5, Episode 9, Monsters Among Us, the climax of the Monsters arc, which was pretty fun, as most of the climaxes of the Season 5 storylines were. And Season 5, Episode 16, Osoroshi no Tabi. Those are pretty much all the episodes which were really good, but obviously didn't make the list. There might be some here and there that I still could have added to the list, but I haven't, so we're gonna stick with these ones. And now, at number 1, if you watched my reactions to this series, you probably already know what I've put at number 1, because it's still the most fun and enjoyment that I got out of the 2012 TMNT series. And I've enjoyed a lot of episodes, but this one just had pure, unadulterated fun. And it honestly came out of nowhere in terms of how fun it was. That being Season 3, Episode 5, In Dreams. Where do I even begin with this episode, honestly? First of all, I love the concept of dream beavers. Like, creatures that feed on your dreams and either make, I guess, your biggest nightmare, or in the case of Mikey, a really happy place, but they are basically draining your life force. And I just really love the way the dreams are portrayed in this episode, with how it kind of starts relatively normal, but then it goes kind of wacky. It's really representative of how my dreams are like, especially Leo's one, which genuinely kind of starts off normal, and then he goes off to like fight one of the beavers in the sky, and I think he had like superpowers, and then he went to like the sun and burned to a crisp or something. It really is as crazy and nonsensical as a dream. I think they really nailed that tone in this episode. Some of the visuals for Raph's dreams were really cool. Like, I love when he's looking at the turtle sitting at the table, and then you see him get surrounded by a snake, and you have all of the other turtles like playing musical instruments. That is still the funniest image of this series, and the thing that I think about whenever I think about the 2012 series, you know? It's just so wacky and so fun, and it's a visually creative episodes that I really, really like. I love the comic booky stuff that we get towards the end of the episodes. I love how we kind of travel from like a scene or a dream into another dream or whatever. That is really cool. And I love the running gag with one of the beavers being kind of odd, and him being friendly with Mikey. And I love how the other beavers constantly scream, "Shut up, Dave!" Just saying it is just so funny. It's amazingly hilarious. I love it. It's the funniest episode of any TMNT that I've ever watched, honestly. I really, really like it. It really feels like an episode that would fit perfectly with Rise of the TMNT, now that I think about it. But yeah, I really like it. It's a crazy episode. If you want like a more accurate description of exactly the things that I enjoy about it, obviously go and watch the reaction. But man, that is and will always be my favorite episode of the series. It's just so fun and crazy and over the top, and I really, really like it. And in a way, it's the definition of what I enjoyed about the 2012 series and what I was looking forward to every time I watched an episode, especially after watching that episode in particular. But yeah, this is pretty much my list for the best episodes of the 2012 series. Did you guys like my list? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? What are your choices for your favorite or best episodes of the 2012 TMNT series? Comment it down below, and let's have a discussion about that. And also, if you guys have any ideas for what other TMNT 2012 related content I can do that you're interested to see, I guess is the better question, comment down below as well, because I wouldn't mind doing something like a character rating or something along those lines, but I don't know if it really feels necessary, and I don't want to seem like I'm just like squeezing the TMNT 12 fruit dry with how much content I keep doing, because you guys keep watching my TMNT 2012 related content. So yeah, comment all of that down below. And also, before we end this video, I just want to give a huge shout out to my currently 4 patrons on Patreon: Omar Bridgman, Deadpool, Corby Dead, and Tia Rose Gelatly. Thank you guys for your support. I really appreciate it. It really means a lot to me. You have decided to support me. You have continued to support me in such a long time. Hope you continue to enjoy my content and continue to support me going forward. Thank you very much. Another thing that I also want to tell you guys before we end this video is something about me that some of you may or may not already know. That will also explain why do I look and dress the way that I do in my videos. That thing being the fact that I am trans. In particular, I am somewhere between a non-binary person and a trans woman, though I am unsure at the moment and probably won't be sure until I talk to a professional who deals with trans people. But that is where the reason why I'm telling you all this comes. I need your help. Due to the fact that I live in a homophobic and transphobic Eastern European country with a family that won't really ever accept the fact that I'm trans if they ever found out, it's not really feasible or easy for me to transition here with minimal to no repercussions. So that's why I would really appreciate any kind or any amount of support that you guys can give me with this. That said, I don't want to guilt trip you or anything. I don't want you to feel like you have to help me. So if you don't want to or you don't have the means to help out, that's okay. Don't feel bad. I just want you to know that it would be greatly appreciated if you did help me get out of this situation. If you have any further questions, feel free to ask me, and thank you for hearing me out. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a like, subscribe. Also, check out the links in the description to my Wattpad, where I post my stories, because in addition to doing all these videos on my channel, I'm also a writer. And if you don't enjoy my stories or simply enjoy my videos, you can head over to my Patreon or to my Ko-fi account, where you can pledge your support and help keep the channel going, help support me so I can keep writing stories you enjoy. But if you don't want to do it, that's completely fine. You can still help me out in other ways, like liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and especially sharing this video with somebody who you think might enjoy it. And I think it's pretty much it for this video, so hopefully I'm gonna see you in the next one. Bye!